Greetings and welcome, everyone. You are in an episode of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show. Powerful conversations for living your best life. And I'm Velan Hawkins. I'm your host, and I'm so excited to welcome our guest today, Trina Hammack. Let me tell you a little bit about Trina because we're going to be in a conversation about silent killers and root causes and what is the gift. Who would imagine there would be a gift in any illness? However, that's what we're going to explore today. Let me tell you a little bit about Trina. She is an FDN-P, and we'll find out what that actually means. Many of you may know, certified health coach and a holistic health and wellness expert who's passionate about having people who are desperate to reclaim their health and vitality. It's her purpose in life to show those who've lost hope how to ditch the Band-Aid approach and resolve their underlying root cause issues once and for all. These are the causes that many times are the silent killers that we don't even want to talk about. Trina is affectionately called the root cause warrior for health because she leaves no stone unturned when searching for a solution. She takes great care in guiding each individual through steps to reclaiming their strength and vitality, and while making it feel natural. Don't we want that? Oh my goodness. She encourages others to ask why. Why your gut's not working? Why am I fatigued? Why do I have liver or any cancer? Why? And most doctors don't know how to answer that. Trina empowers people to believe what we know to be true, that the answers are not only multifaceted, they're multi-layered, and one magic pill from your doctor or 2 or 10 is not going to be able to save you. To get well, we have to take responsibility for our own health. And if things aren't working, then dig deeper. But you can't do it alone. And that's why I love having this conversation today, because it really is about not giving up to get the answers that we need to claim our best health. Welcome, Trina. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here too, because this is a conversation that so many of us disregard about what it is that are, number one, the silent killers, number two, how do we get to these root causes, and number three, just what is it all about? Why do we not have more information that we can utilize to see that there is a gift in all of this? And I love how all of it's going to come together today. So for our audience, get your notepads out, get your water, be with us here because it's going to be a deep conversation. And I'll start with my first question. Tell us a little bit more about you and your journey towards your current passion and focus on helping others inquire to get to the why of illness and discomfort.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've been a holistic practitioner for 27 years, but that was not an easy road. It was pretty bumpy. I went through a lot of physical challenges where nobody could figure out my root causes. When I had Lyme eating my brain back in 2003, they said, oh, you need a shrink. But no, I was like having seizures and blacking out, and they thought I needed a shrink. And it was actually Lyme disease in my brain. And then it was aggressive stage 3 ovarian cancer. And I mean, how could a holistic practitioner living on the pristine coast of Big Sur, living a clean lifestyle, how could somebody like that have a tumor this big?
Wow.
And a very aggressive type of cancer, which I treated naturally, by the way, after they took it out, no chemo, 14 years ago. And then I've been mold poisoned more times than you can imagine, and heavy metal poisoned. And I just could not stop looking for underlying root causes as to how could somebody who lives such a healthy lifestyle get sick. So sometimes it was environmental, like mold. Sometimes it was a tick and bacterial. Sometimes it was, and here's something most people don't know, emotional when it came to the cancer. The emotional root cause to my particular type of cancer, it had to do with a deep loss my brain had recorded many years ago. And we can talk more and more about this, but there are root causes on all levels. And I had to figure it out so that I could be a better practitioner and go deeper. And, unfortunately, I seem to be the girl that has to go through it to learn it like really deeply, but it's true. And then, there's always a gift there. And my gift has been to be able to learn this stuff on all these different levels so that I can help my clients, figure out their journey and get better.
Well, that is beautiful. Not necessarily what you had to go through, but we know that our lives are purposed and we live this track that we end up on for a particular reason. And when we figure that out, it just makes me in particular so much more grateful that I've come out of it and have a story to share and can even do my work more purposefully. So I applaud you and I appreciate you for taking all of those lessons and bringing them to the world now. We really need it.
True. Very true.
So let's talk about those silent killers. Tell us a little bit about how you or a client have been impacted by one of these silent killers, what it meant as far as life changes that you possibly had to make, and what other overall impact did it have on you?
Wow. Well, let's talk about one silent killer that most people don't know anything about, because we all know that, a poor diet, okay, that's a silent killer. You're not taking care of your body. But the emotional root causes to disease are something that most people don't really realize are there. And I didn't really know. I knew that there was some emotional stuff that could tie to things, the old Louise Hay thing. But I didn't realize that a doctor had actually come up with this theory, Dr. Hammer, and he's passed away a few years ago now, but he had developed his theory of German New Medicine, which is the theory that every type of shock or trauma hits the body on many different levels. And you can actually see on a brain scan, and I've done my brain scan twice to see these shock rings. They look like ripples. They look like a tree ring on the brain scan. And those represent very specific shocks or traumas. Now, sometimes we resolve those shocks or traumas, we let it go, we move forward. But sometimes, and this is what happened to me, you can have a shock or a trauma that just stays stored on the brain. Now that where it hit, that area of the brain will also connect to an organ or a gland. So he found that there are very specific types of shocks and traumas that will affect very specific organs and glands. And then there's like a 3-step process. You get hit, there's a conflict phase, you get hit with the shock or trauma, and it hits the brain on different areas. So for me, when I was 3, I was taken from my dad in the middle of the night, and my mom moved us away. And I didn't see him for like 43 years. So can you imagine a little 3-year-old having this, like, what is going on? And then you've got this new evil stepdad and all this stuff. And so this was a shock that hit my ovary relay, my right ovary relay. And ovarian stuff has to do with loss. So I had this deep loss. It had started to affect my right ovary. I had no idea. I didn't know. How do you know? So I was in this conflict, and it was unresolved because a 3-year-old can't really resolve something like that. She just has to kind of go with it. So what happened for 43 years until I met my dad in person, 43 years later, my right ovary was breaking down into these micro perforations and breaking down while I was in this conflict phase. Then 43 years later, I met my dad, and I went into this next phase called the resolution phase. So my brain said, as soon as I met my dad, and this was all subconscious, I had no clue this was going on. Oh my gosh, she has her daddy back. And so that I went from a conflict to resolving the conflict, and the brain says, okay, let's send amino acids to the area of the brain that's holding this trauma. And it healed it on the brain. So you can see it's very different. It's nice and healed on the brain. It looks white instead of like a tree ring. And then it sent a signal to the ovary that it was time to heal. So we went from a conflict phase to resolving it when I met my dad. Now the ovary had to go into the third and final stage, which is the healing phase. So in this particular case, resolving that conflict put my ovary into healing. But because I had so much damage to it for 43 years, it was breaking down. I grew this huge tumor. So in that healing phase, the tissue will swell, and then fingers will go out to get nutrients to bring it back to the ovary so it can continue to heal. So I probably had tentacles all through my abdomen. And if they would have opened me up earlier, they would have seen that and just sewed me back up and sent me home to die. So it swells, the tentacles go out to get the nutrients. At a certain point, they retract back in. And then at the end of the healing phase, which takes 9 months for ovaries, it dies from the inside out. And I kept listening. I knew something was going on because my son said, "Hey, Mom, you're getting fat." And I'm like, "Great." And I, as a Rolfer body worker, I could palpate my belly and I could feel like a balloon in there. And I'm like, this is not right. So I went and I got checked out, but I didn't go until it felt like it was time to go. And in fact, I made an appointment with my gynecologist, and I went, and he had to cancel last minute. He got food poisoning. And so it wasn't time for me to start that investigation yet, obviously, because once they opened me up and they took this big thing out, it was already necrotizing. It was already dying from the inside out. So I made it through this whole healing phase of swelling, tentacles, retraction, and dying. And that's the perfect time to take it out. So, all that being said, and then after I finished that healing phase, then I went back to life as normal. And I can even look on my brain scan and I can see it's not coming back because of how it looks on my scan. So that has been really, really impactful. And so as a result of this whole process, I needed to understand, is this thing coming back or not? And that's when I went and I started studying Dr. Hammer's work more extensively. I had known a little bit about his work, but I didn't really understand. And so then I trained. I even took a couple of my doctor friends with me, and we learned this stuff, even learned how to read the brain scans. So, but this is one of the silent killers that most people won't tell you about. And you have to get to the underlying root cause, whether you go a holistic route or more traditional route, or a combination of both, that the emotional trauma is what's driving the whole thing. So.
Wow. And I totally agree. That's one of the reasons that I ended up on my journey finding NLP and hypnosis and Ho'oponopono, because for me, a lot of the things that I experienced were on the emotional side.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't really realize that they had a physical impact. I was feeling things in the energetic space. Why isn't this working? Why is this so hard? And even understanding that and going back to resolve some of those early childhood issues that impact you all the way through your life. And like you said, it's tough sometimes because you don't know what's happening. You don't even know what you're seeing. And being in the midst of it, seeing it, it's like you need help. You
Yeah.
need help. And did you have someone on the outside who was kind of guiding you to this information? Did it come intuitively? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was intuitive. And I've always lived my life like that anyway. So I was just paying attention inside. And then, whenever I ask for something, it will show it, right up in the right time. So, and then back to your point about that, these little things in your life when you're a kid that happen to you may play out over and over again. Look at the patterns in your life and look at the Groundhog Day moments that keep showing up over and over and over again. They all go back to something that happened typically when we're young. And this pattern's playing out as your brain is trying to resolve those conflicts.
And it's an amazing part of the journey. For me, it took me a minute to start thinking that it was painful to see some of these things. And back to this idea of there being a gift. When you can see something has been trouble, your conflict, and then you've gone through this stage of resolution, getting to the other side, the healing that occurs, I believe, and you can speak to this too, occurs so much more deeply, quickly, and longer lasting when it's done from a perspective of love and gratitude and self love. You know, you did a great job going through this process. Now, what did you get out of it? So, talk to us a little bit about that side of things and really seeing the gift. How does that open up for
Well,
someone?
when I work with my clients, I have them do a little visualization and I say, okay, just close your eyes and for a moment, pull all the characters in your life before you, the ones that you have these conflicts with. And typically it's like mother, father, siblings, people close to you or anybody, your partner. Imagine that you're standing before them in soul form as your soul and their soul. And imagine what if you contracted with each of these individuals to have them play a certain role for you. Like, please, will you play this kind of father for me because I need to learn this thing. And they say back to you in a soul form, are you sure? And you say, yes, please. I really, really, really need to learn this thing. And the only way I can get it is if you're this kind of dad for me. And they say, I love you so much that I will do this for you. And then we go on and we make these contracts with different people that are close to us over and over again. And then everything's set. Everybody has their roles. This is how I see it. And then we all come here and we forget everything, but we are still playing those roles, but we don't know it consciously that we've contracted it to get this. So I contracted with my stepfather to play the ogre, the beast in my life so that I could learn to find my strength and my courage. To go through some of the things I've been through. I mean, I could have easily been a victim and given up, but I had to dig deep and I had to find some strength because I was very shy as a little girl, but now I'm a warrior. Now you can't stop me. And so that was the gift that I got from him. And, so look at the people in your life that you have the conflicts with. And look at the emotions that it's bringing up. How are they pushing your buttons? What do you need to get from that so that you can grow? And then guess what? When let's say this is them and this is you. And when you have this push me, pull you thing and you finally let go, guess what? They stop because they've accomplished what you wanted them to help you with. So when you let go, they let go. And then without saying a word, you'll see shifts in the relationship. It's crazy, but it's true. I see it time and time again.
Oh my goodness. And that was such a great analogy. And the way that you described it, I think that many of us miss so much because we choose to stay in this conflict for longer than we really need to.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you. That was a real gift in itself. Um, so Trina, what would you say is one of the biggest things that we should be aware of as it relates to root causes of disease and discomfort? We suffer from migraines and fibromyalgia, arthritis, obesity,
Mm-hmm.
or any chronic illness. and we go to the doctor, and they're always ready to prescribe the next medication. And we've talked about root causes, but we've been trained in the psychology of Dr. Knows Best.
Hmm.
And it's 30, 40, 50 years worth of that. So our generation, our children's generation, and with the exception of those of us who said, ask another question, to address these types of symptoms and not the root cause, what should we be considering, and how should we proceed to find the information that can help us?
Well, let's say when somebody comes to me and they've got gut issues or fibromyalgia or whatever it is, or they can't lose weight, I look on all levels. So I'm going to look at for any disease, it doesn't even have to be a cancer, I'll look at that emotional trigger, because everything doesn't have to be a cancer. It can be a cold. Everything goes through that 3-level conflict resolution healing process. Even a common cold. Let's say you are mad at your best friend and you're holding back the words and you're in that conflict. And I really need to tell her this, but I can't. And so your throat's breaking down into micro perforations. And then finally you resolve it and you speak it. Well, then microbes come in to repair, and that's when you get the sore throat. So this is really important for everybody to understand. When you get sick, the only time you can get sick is in that healing phase. What did you just resolve? Always ask yourself, what did you just resolve to take you from a conflict to a resolution to finally healing? Because the microbes are actually helping you heal. Why aren't we getting sick sitting in a room right now with bazillions of microbes hanging out? Well, if you're not in a healing phase, they're neutral to you. Okay. So that emotional root cause, it doesn't just apply to cancer, it applies to anything. Like fibromyalgia, there are different emotional root causes like depreciation, and there's like 4 of them all together that come together. Like you fall and then you feel depreciated, and there's several triggers for something like that. But then on top of the emotional ones, then I would say, okay, well, what are the accidents physically that they've had in their life? Have they had car accidents? Have they, hurt themselves to create damaged areas or interference fields? If you have an impact or you've had a surgery, that can block energy flow through the meridians, and that creates an interference field. So all of a sudden you're not getting nutrients to a certain area of the body. And pain and more swelling will happen in that area of the body if you're not getting flow. And then microbes set up shop in those weak areas of the body as well. So anytime you've had a surgery or an injury, you want to have that open back up. Now I'll do that with Rolfing, gentle Rolfing. It doesn't have to hurt. It's myofascial release, and you realign the body. Sometimes I'll use frequency specific microcurrent, and there are lots of practitioners around the world that can do this for you. I'll wear these electrode gloves and run frequencies through my hands while I manipulate the tissue. And those frequencies are designed to break down scar tissue and open up these interference fields to get the energy flowing again. So there's that. Then we have to look at the toxic levels. We have so many toxins in our environments, from Roundup and glyphosate. Did you know that most wine is glyphosate poisoned? Most wines have Roundup in them. And and that's a hormone disruptor. And, that can be a really big deal. And so I tell my clients, drink the wines that Dry Farms Wines have if you have to drink wine, because they're tested to be glyphosate free. There's no sugar, and they're lower in alcohol, and they're delicious. And so I don't want to be drinking poison. That's an underlying root cause that people don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have the emotional, you have the physical traumas, you have the toxic traumas, which also then many times if we're maybe exposed to mold, that can set you up for a lot of issues as well. And mold is very tricky. Mold can hide. You can not see the source, but it can be hiding behind the walls and making you very, very sick. And in fact, we couldn't find the mold in this one house we were in, and we couldn't find another non-moldy house. So while we were looking for 8 months, we lived in a tent in the backyard, because mold is such a silent killer. You may not see it, but all of us in the house got sick in different ways because of our genetics and our history and all of that. So, then mold is interesting. So when I do, you asked about what are my credentials, FDN-P, functional diagnostic nutrition. So I'm a little investigator and on a functional medicine type of level. So when I look at somebody's gut dysfunction, I always want to do an investigation, and I always want to include, are they moldy? Because you can colonize mold from way back when you were a kid. So when I was 5, I used to wake up and we lived in this one house in Indianapolis. My eyes would be crusted shut, and I had all these bumps on my head that were really, really itchy. And I had really long hair. My mom chopped it all off. Trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she thought my hair was too hot, but it was really, I was in a moldy house. Well, how did I know that? I didn't know it back then, but we moved into a house in Carmel by the Sea here in beautiful California. But there's a lot of mold on this peninsula. And I started getting those same symptoms back all these years later. So I never cleared it completely out of my system, but upon re-exposure, my body reacted that way. So I had been colonizing mold all my life because I don't have the genetics to clear it. So sometimes that is a silent killer and a root cause. Now, what happens then? Mold is at the top of the heap, and it will cause all these other overgrowths to happen. So you want to take away mold first and detox from mold first. And then when you take that away, then other infections and whatnot start to come to the surface so you can actually see them. H. pylori is one, Lyme disease. And then you really need to treat them in the right order. Mold, and then Lyme. Sometimes C. diff is there. Then you go with that. H. pylori, then you deal with parasites, then you deal with bacteria, candida, and SIBO in that order. So you want to start at the top and work your way down. A lot of times people start from the bottom and try to work their way up, and they say, oh, I'm going to do a candida cleanse. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but you've got all this big stuff feeding that, and the candida is there as the cleanup crew. And is trying to save you, it's trying to protect you, and trying to get rid of all the garbage. So, when you're looking at root causes on that physical microbial level, start at the top and you work your way down. And there's different functional testing that we'll do in order to figure out, okay, well, what happened here? And then deal with it in the right order. So there's so many things, that people, they don't know about. And even somebody like me who really pays attention to their health can be really susceptible. So there's a lot that I do every single day to make sure that I stay healthy. And
Well, that is a great segue to my next question. What are some of the things that you do? I think that, we've all come into this, I need a daily ritual, and sometimes it's limited to prayer and a cup of coffee, but sometimes it has to be a little more intentional and inclusive of what we need physically, emotionally. What are some of the things that you do?
oh boy, that was my newsletter yesterday.
Yeah.
So some of my personal detox strategies, some of my strategies, besides the very first thing when I open my eyes is doing my prayers and my intentions for the day. It depends on what day of the week it is. I may spin 3 days a week and do an interval and arm class. So I get a good sweat, because sweating is a great way to get rid of those glyphosates we talked about and some of these other toxins. The 2 ways that you detox are glyphosates and more glutathione. and glutathione's a detoxer. So I'll sweat. Today I didn't spin because I did yesterday. So today I did an infrared sauna. And so sweating again is really helpful to detox. What else can I do? If last night my husband was feeling a little bit congested in his chest, so I made him an onion poultice. And so I just chopped up an organic onion and I sauteed it for about a minute in a little bit of water. And then I put it into a clean dishcloth and let it cool a little bit, and then put it onto his chest for a little compress, because onions, they attract viruses and they attract microbes. And so if you feel like you're starting to come down with something, do an onion poultice. Everybody can afford an onion, right? And chop it up, saute it up, put it on there as a compress. Then before you go to bed, take some fresh onion slices, put them in your socks on the soles of your feet, and go to sleep with the onions, and they'll start to grab microbes and attract microbes. And then I'll put a cut onion on the side of my bed so that as you breathe, those microbes are going to the onion. Old wives' tale, but it works.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love that. I'm going to be doing that one. I
Yep.
remember in this was elementary school, I had a friend who used to come to school with a little piece of onion tied around her neck. And I was like, what is that for? And it was one of her grandmother's remedies. She's like, I was feeling sick and my grandma said, I have to wear this. So I'm wearing it and I'm smelling like onion, but I'm okay. I'm like, okay.
That's great.
We get away from these things that are so simple yet profound in helping us to live our best lives. I mean, that's a simple thing that we can do, which I'm going to be doing. So thank you for that one. Oh my gosh.
That's a good one. Castor oil packs are also an excellent way to draw infection out. And sometimes I'll take some, if I feel like I'm starting to get anything upper respiratory, I'll put some oils like a Ravensara or tea tree on first. And then I'll take some castor oil and put it on an organic flannel cloth, put it on the chest or on the liver or on the abdomen with some heat. And that will draw as well. So today what I did was I just took some castor oil because I was getting in the sauna. And I just put it on my abdomen and my chest and just got in the sauna, and I sweated there and then took a shower. So castor oil packs, again, old remedy, fantastic. Another one to keep you healthy in cold and flu season, especially, are doing neti pots. So neti pot flushes, and then you can also use Xlear nasal spray and Argentin 23 colloidal silver spray up in the sinuses. So that's really great. But wait, I have something. Where's my favorite? Hold on. My favorite little trick. Wasn't thinking about sharing this, but I will. So everybody needs one of these. So you've got neti pots, you've got the silver and the Xlear, but everybody needs a copper zap. This is a piece of copper that copper sanitizes. And so you can sanitize your hands with it. But what you do, the moment you sneeze or feel a tickle up in your nose, you put this up in your nose and you rub it around and it sanitizes and you don't get sick.
Okay.
These things are awesome. Awesome. So this is something I keep in my purse.
Okay.
And I travel with it. And if I sneeze in our family, anybody who sneezes, we all go copper zap, and everybody gets their copper zap and we do our noses. These things are amazing. Copper is, it's like an antimicrobial. And many of us can be actually copper deficient, and we need more copper to make more stem cells. So it's a good thing to have.
Interesting. So I had a wrist injury a couple of years ago, and I got a copper fit glove wrist thing and worked amazingly. And beyond that, I had been dealing with some arthritis in my knees. and I got some copper fit knee braces. Oh my gosh. It was like, oh, yes. But didn't realize, this was just me intuitively. It's something about copper. Get this. It's like, okay. But what you've just explained has brought in so much more information. And it's one of the issues that we have, right? There's so much information out there. Where do I go to get what I really need, and can I trust it? Because, we went through this thing with the internet. Everything on there, you learned it on the internet, you better go do some other research. And then it got better. And then it kind of got good. There was still stuff that came in. And now there's just such a plethora of information. It's like, how do you know what the best information is? And that's one of the reasons why I started this show, because I wanted to bring people who knew their stuff, who were actually doing these things, to my audience, and really help to understand that there are several things that we just need to know: silent killers, root causes, the gifts in the things that we live through. And that's actually a good segue to my next question for you. I thought it was interesting that I was reading some of your stuff, and you subscribe to the thought that fat is your friend.
Mm.
And you talk about reframing the way that we think about fat. And we're always told fat's a negative, right? Whether you're eating it or wearing it. And as an athlete, personally, I've heard the premise of using fat to fuel because you're an athlete and you need that. Um, I call it consuming it to burn it. But how is it that, maybe other than the exercising piece, how can fat be your friend? How do you reframe thinking about that?
Yeah, this is a good one. Think about this. What is the role of fat? Fat is to insulate you. Fat is to protect you. Fat is to burn. But if you are exposed to a lot of toxic load, let's say even from the makeup you wear, the chemicals you use to clean the house, mold exposure, whatever toxic environment you're in, and your fat's going to come in to protect you. It's going to grab onto that toxin. So when we were in a moldy house, I put on 40 pounds like that for no reason. Nothing had changed in my diet. I put on 40 pounds. I'm like, what is going on? I didn't feel good. But fat was protecting me by grabbing onto the mold, holding onto it to keep it out of my bloodstream, to keep me safe. My fat was there to save my life. Now, I knew that it wasn't coming from my own hand, because we eat organic, grass-fed, pasture, everything is clean. We don't eat processed junk. I'm like, how could this be that I just pack on all this weight? And it was because it was insulating me. It was protecting me. So when I have people, we have a really great weight loss program, right? So what we do is we get people eating in a healthy manner, getting rid of the inflammatory foods. But now what we have to do is we have to teach the brain how to see the fat as fuel, so that we can burn it off and get rid of those toxins. So we kind of trick the brain and change the chemistry, because your body will not defend itself and detox at the same time. It will do one or the other. So when we're talking about fat being your friend, it's because it's just basically saving your life, because you've got exposed to things that you can't clear. And so sometimes we just have to change the chemistry so that we can get the brain to say, oh, okay, it's safe now. We can start to burn this off and flush it out. So that's what I mean when I say fat's your friend.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Um, we typically don't look at fat as being that type of protector. I know that I've spoken with a number of trauma victims who have um, just packed on the additional weight, and the real thing in their mind was, it's a protector. If I'm overweight and unattractive, this won't happen to me, or this will stop happening to me. Yet we don't realize that there's another perspective to some of that, and just being in an environment nothing's changed. You're still doing your same thing, yet you're still picking up weight. It's the body's signal to say that it's trying to protect you. Just a totally new perspective on how we view how our bodies are reacting and acting.
Right.
So thank you for that. And so many of our conversations here on the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show actually dive into the subject of using lifestyle and food as medicine and living pretty much a whole food, plant-based lifestyle, right? And while I do believe in meeting people where they are to start that journey of learning how to do life more healthily and actively and just more knowledgeable, um, is there anything that you do daily as it relates to food or weekly, or just how do you incorporate this whole food piece, this nutrition piece into your life?
Sure. Well, number one, I drink a lot of water. You see me drinking constantly as we're talking here. You got to drink a lot of water because you need to hydrate your cells so they can communicate, so they can detox. So that's like the very first thing is I make sure that I drink a lot of water. I drink mold-free coffee. I have this is something people don't know. I'm really sensitive to mold, obviously, after having been poisoned. So I drink one of 4 brands. It's either going to be Kion, that's my favorite, Kion, or Purity Coffee, Life Boost, or Bulletproof. They're all tested to be mold-free. A lot of coffee is moldy. And so I drink mold-free coffee. That's the, if I drink a cup of Starbucks, I fall asleep. So I know, right? So what is up with that? That's mold in the coffee that I'm reacting to. I'm like, why am I falling asleep? It's because it's contaminated. So I make sure that, when it comes to the coffee drinking, that we make sure we always have that. We only eat organic. I don't want to eat my pesticides. I don't want any pesticides. It's, hard enough, but we're still getting hit with glyphosates. They can travel for like 50 miles in the air. And so you may think you're getting something organic, but it may not be. So you wash them real well and whatnot. But so we strive to do that. We'll eat grass-fed and finished meats. I'm a type O blood, so I've tried to be a vegetarian. It doesn't work for me. I got really weak when I did that. So we do that. Well, organic chicken, organic turkey, wild fish, no farmed fish. So we try to eat as cleanly as possible. For me personally, I can't do gluten anymore. This is an interesting thing. Your mold susceptibility gene sits right next to your gluten susceptibility gene. And when you've been mold poisoned or you've been mold triggered, that will turn on your weakness, your susceptibility to being able to handle gluten. So I can't eat gluten unless it comes directly from Italy, where it's undenatured. So then I can actually handle it. But here in the States, most of our wheat has been turned into a super sugar and hybridized and whatnot. And so it's not a natural thing that your body doesn't know how to break down. So I steer away from that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing has happened with our dairy. So I steer away from traditional dairy. I grew up in Wisconsin. We used to chug gallons of milk and we were fine with it. And then one day when I moved to California, I had a glass of milk. I doubled over in pain. I'm like, what is up with that? It's what they did to the cow itself, how they changed it with hormones and antibiotics and whatnot. It changed the protein in the milk. And then my body couldn't break it down. So most people are becoming inflamed. It's all about inflammation. They're becoming inflamed. They're blunting their hormone and nutrition receptors because the cells are inflamed and now they're not getting good nutrition in and toxic waste out. So I avoid like traditional dairy. Like sometimes I may have some goat cheese or some sheep. If I know somebody who's raising those goats, I'll eat their cheese. But basically the grains and the dairy, I try to avoid those. They just make me inflamed. I think learning your body and what works for you for where you are now in your life is really important. When we have people go through our weight loss program, we besides tricking the body into seeing the fat as fuel, we do an elimination diet. We want to eliminate the things that could be driving inflammation there. And, while they're in that elimination part, they're burning fat. They're burning like a half a pound to a pound of fat a day and feel fantastic. They're getting rid of the toxic load. They feel great. And then at the end of their plan, we have them bring in one food at a time, a clean source. And let's see, how does your body handle that now that you've desensitized for it? Because our histories and genetics are completely different. You can handle, I may not be able to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we kind of do the food thing.
Well, that is a great way to do the food thing. And I think that, one of the doctors that I interviewed one time said that we are our best experiments
Yeah.
because we are so bio-individual that we have to be our own best experiments. And as we're wrapping up, as we're bringing our conversation to a close, is there some wisdom that you believe is important to share in the short time that we have together? It's something that you want to have a positive impact on our audience?
Sure. It'll be some advice from my mom.
Okay.
Always follow your heart. Your heart is your navigational system in this life. And if you really tune in to that deep place, that true place, you'll never go wrong. You'll just continue to find the right path for you. And it's never a straight path. It's always weaving and turning and twisting. And you need to course correct as you go. And listening to that and that intuitive part of you, it's your guide. So that's my mom's advice.
Well, that is some excellent advice. Just listen to your heart. Thank you so much, Trina. This was so great to just have talked about silent killers and root causes and the gift of the things that we move through in our lives. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It was so much fun.
Awesome. And to our audience, we're going to wrap up and let you know that Trina's information, her LinkedIn link, will be posted with this video. And just share, help us to get the word out. This was such great information, and we want everyone to know what we've brought in today. Please share and stay tuned for more exciting stuff to come as the weeks go on, because we've got some amazing things that are coming up in future episodes. So turn on your notifications and be a part of it all. And please do us the favor of sharing, helping us to get this message out. Thanks. And until next time, remember, live, love, and be a bigger positive impact maker in your world. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.